Y'all, this peach cobbler, it literally gets me every time. The combination of flavors between the mango and peach just really make it. And then that slowly melting vanilla ice cream on top and that salted caramel bourbon ice cream just totally hits the spot. Y'all, my hair today just was not cooperating for this video, so we're looking at Florida humidity taking over for, of course, peach cobbler day. I'm gonna show you guys how I make my peach and also mango cobbler. We have a lot of mangoes in Florida right now since it's mango season down here, and my mom one day years ago mixed mango and peaches together and was absolutely amazing. I'm going to be making it with my bourbon salted caramel that I'm going to glaze on top with some cinnamon ice cream. So really excited to show you. It's absolutely delicious. It is a family favorite, and I think that you guys will like it too. Let's go. I always give you guys full view and also a closer up view, so you'll always see my phone here in the background in my videos. But we're gonna start off by slicing the peaches and the mango. This gets a little bit messy, but I already have my oven going on at 350 and I have my stainless steel pan already warming up on the stove. We're gonna kind of saute a little bit of the peaches and the mango together with some maple syrup and some butter before we add it to the dish. Peach cobbler is just one of those desserts that I feel like it's such a true Southern American staple. It is absolutely so delicious and absolutely easy to make. Slicing up some peaches, sauteing them, putting up some batter and sprinkling it on top and baking it. So easy. And it's literally my favorite during peach season. I have family that lives in the Carolinas, and we always drive from Florida to the Carolinas, and on the way back we would stop on the roadsides of Georgia and just grab all the fresh Georgia peaches that we possibly can, get back home, and my mom would literally make fresh peach cobbler the next day with mangoes because we are in Florida and it is mango season. And the combination between the two is just absolutely delicious. And then one day I decided, let me top it with my salted bourbon caramel that I normally make for the fall holidays on top of the cobbler and ice cream. And it was just an absolute game changer. The recipe normally calls for about 6 peaches. So I normally do about 4 peaches and a full mango, but we're having quite a few people over tomorrow. My sister just got back in town, and I know they're gonna just devour this peach and mango cobbler. So I'm making quite a few extra. And Sean himself will probably eat half of the cobbler by tomorrow night before my sister can even get here. So, per usual. Now we're gonna slice the mango. I've never been able to cut mango properly. In all my years of living in Florida, which is pretty much my whole entire life, there is a way to cut mango, and I know that I don't do it right. So if you're looking to cut mango the proper way, I'm probably not your best bet, to be honest. Just peel that up. Oh, my dad has about 3 different types of mango trees. He has 1 sweet, 1 sour, and sweet. It's so weird. You bite into it and it's first sour and then it turns sweet, and then a more creamier mango. I'm using this sweet and sour mango. It's a little bit creamier. You don't want peach, like when you make cobbler, you don't want it to be too sweet, you know? Like you want it to be sweet, but you still want it to be like tangy. So that's the reason why I'm using this specific mango, because a sweet mango is fairly fairly sweet, especially when ripened. And the mangoes right now are super soft. So what I'm gonna do now is mix my peaches with my mango and sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon and a little bit of nutmeg in there and let it sit while I brown my butter. I say this in most of my dessert recipes. I love brown butter. It gives it such a better taste. So I should just get a shirt that says brown buttered. Actually, never mind. That doesn't sound right. I'm about to get canceled on YouTube. I'm gonna go ahead and mix the mango and peaches up together with cinnamon and nutmeg. So I'm using a little bit of nutmeg, or a lot, a generous amount of cinnamon, and a little bit of coriander. Coriander is just one of those spices that in savory, it really brings it out, and then in the sweet, especially in the fall desserts, really brings out the flavor. Huge fan of coriander in a lot of our spices. I actually learned that from my sister. She is a professional chef, and I started to notice that she was literally using coriander in everything. And not only does it have amazing anti-inflammatory properties, but again, as I mentioned, it's amazing the type of flavor that it brings out. I'm gonna go ahead and just mix this all up together. Try not to mix it too hard because the mango is a little bit more mushy and you don't want it to soften it too much. I'm just one of those people that absolutely love a lot of butter in recipes, and butter is good for you. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But I feel like butter just gives such a better flavor to desserts and even food than like coconut oil. So if it's going to be a substitute, it's gonna be butter. So now I'm setting my heat over to about a 4 on the stove top, and I'm adding in about a fourth of maple syrup with the butter. You don't want to candy the peaches, but you're gonna start adding it in so that the maple syrup is not turning into a candy. Either way, you should have the heat on really low, okay? You really want to caramelize the peaches and the mango. If you see here, I did not chop up the mango. I still have it in full pieces. Reason being is mango can get really mushy, and I don't want it to get overly mushy just yet. So I'm gonna caramelize it first with the butter and the maple syrup, okay, when it has the cinnamon on top. And then when I take it out, I'm gonna kind of chop it up before I add it into the pan. I'm gonna cover it up now, and while this is slowly cooking a little bit and caramelizing, I'm gonna start getting the dough ready. So all I remember from the recipe when it comes to the butter for the batter is my mom telling me it's about, 6 tablespoons of butter for the batter. But I don't have the exact measurement for it, so I'm actually gonna measure it now for you in grammage so you guys can have that. It's about 6 tablespoons of butter cubed. This is an old-fashioned cobbler, so we're gonna melt the butter first. I love anything old-fashioned. Good bourbon. Okay, let's see here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm trying to scoop it out with my left hand here so you guys can see it. And just a little bit more. Around 68 grams of butter. 74 grams of butter. Now, we're gonna put the butter in the pan. We're gonna put it in the oven for it to melt, and we're gonna take it out and then do the batter. Don't ask me why we do it that way. I just know we gotta put the butter pieces on the pan and melt it, and then we mix the batter in on top. Our butter is now melted. You don't want to burn it, just want to have it melted. You're going to keep that aside. And now we're going to make the batter. So I already added in my baking powder and my salt because of course I forgot to record the close-up of it. But now we're going to add the sugar. We are a healthier household, so I actually use coconut sugar in the batter. And then I actually mix in a little bit of maple syrup just to give it more of that, you know, non-healthy dessert taste, I guess. Give it a good mix so it's all well incorporated. And then I go ahead and I add in the milk. You're gonna mix it up until you get a batter-like consistency. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour some maple syrup, just a little bit. Oop, I think that was a lot. Do add just a tad bit of vanilla in my batter. There's always like a million seals in these things. It's just a little bit of vanilla. One of these days I'm gonna have one of those like Magnolia kitchens to cook in for you guys. All right. You know what? I had an idea. Oh, that's good. I think I'm gonna make a second batch. Basically 2 servings. Make 2 servings and split it in half so I can pour over the top of the peaches. The recipe calls for the butter to be at the bottom, assuming it's to keep the cobbler moist, to not dry out. Which doesn't make any sense because the peaches are pretty juicy. So just spreading the cobbler over the pan as best as you can, the batter. Try not to have any open spaces. Next, we're gonna scoop the peaches and the mango into the cobbler. This is where I start slicing up the mango, just in the pan. I'm gonna actually use crumble on top. I've never done that before, but you know what? Sometimes when I'm recording these, I'm trying things out for the first time. And you know what? It's been my best recipes that have come out of it. So, I'm still recording, right? Sometimes I forget to hit record and I don't give you all the stuff that you need. I just know that Sean's gonna eat almost half of this tonight. Every single time I bake something, he's such a sweet tooth. I'll bake chocolate chip cookies and a man will literally eat 12 in one night. If you see him comment on it's dripping wet detailing supplies, you'll see him commenting on my video something smarky about this comment. So for the crumble, I'm gonna do 1.5 cups of flour. Just to make sure that I have enough, because I have not tried this out yet, and then I could just always keep the leftover crumble. Crumble does require sugar, so I'm gonna use actually just 1/2 cup. I don't want it to be too sweet. Yeah, that should be good. Let's add a little bit more, maybe 1/4. Okay. You're gonna wanna put about 2 tablespoons of cinnamon to start. Let's see, guys. Okay, perfect. So 1.5 cups of flour, about 3/4 cup of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of about cinnamon. You can add a little bit more if you want, but I'm actually going to add a sprinkle of nutmeg. And for this one, I'm also gonna add a hint of coriander. Do a pinch of salt. I'm actually gonna put in a little bit, a smidge of allspice. Now we gotta measure out butter. Probably gonna be using about 1/2 cup, half a block of butter. So let's see here. I want it to be room temp. Not too hot though, and not too cold either. Drop the butter into the crumble. You're gonna start mixing the crumble up. Going until the butter is fully incorporated, and if you need to add more butter, you can add more butter if you want. I feel like making crumble is just not a thing for someone who has like arthritis, in my opinion. You could use this in a mixer, but I feel like making crumble is just not helpful for anyone with carpal tunnel or like arthritis. But you can use a stand mixer if you want. I just like using my hands and really incorporating the butter. Okay guys, so this is what the crumble should look like once finally incorporated and your hand feels like it had 10 years of carpal tunnel on it. And then we're gonna go ahead and just sprinkle it on the actual peaches now. So it looks like I do have leftover crumble. You can either put all of it on top if you want, or you could bake the rest in a separate dish and sprinkle it on top of your ice cream. It'll be really good and delicious. Now we're gonna put it in the oven for about 38 to 40 minutes. As the cobbler is baking, we're gonna make that salted bourbon caramel homemade. We're gonna start off with 2 cups of maple syrup. Now, really important, you want a tall pot for this because you want the maple syrup to bubble up so it can caramelize, okay? If you have a shorter pot, it's gonna bubble over, it's gonna be really hot, it's gonna get all over the place, and it's not something you want all over the stove. It's not fun to clean up afterwards, okay? So we're gonna start off with about 2 cups of maple syrup. It's gonna bubble once it hits the pan. That's perfectly fine. I'm gonna have to open another thing of maple syrup. Make a lot of caramel because the caramel is a popular one. And now we wait for it to bubble. You'll hear it start bubbling. There'll be like a few bubbles on top starting to come out. I can't even talk. But right now I actually have the pot on high. You want it to be high at this point. You just don't want it to be too hot when you first pour it in so that it doesn't burn. You want to gradually pull up the temperature. So I'm starting to see it boil now on the sides. That's when you know it's about to start bubbling. While that is starting to bubble up, and we're gonna stir occasionally, I'm gonna get a little bit of milk, heavy cream out, and butter to be ready. As you can see, it's bubbling up. I'm just slowly gonna put my spatula in here so that it doesn't bubble over. Occasionally, you just wanna stir. Probably shouldn't have my face this close to the pot. Oops. But now you want to stir a little bit more and let it bubble again, okay? You want it, it's going to start thickening up, but you don't want it to overdo it because then it just candies up. But you want to do this ahead of time and put it in a heat-safe jar. I just use a mason jar or a Weck jar. You want it to essentially cool room temperature on the counter. You don't want to put it in the fridge right away. So it'll give you time by the time you want to serve your peach cobbler if you're planning to serve it fresh out of the oven once it's cooled a little bit. You'll notice that it's done when it starts, the bubbles are really hard to break through. So this is where you're gonna add just a little bit of cream at a time, and it tends to thicken as well. Okay. So you kind of want to eye it. It wants to turn a little bit like light brown. And add the butter. Incorporate and melt the butter in. I'm gonna go ahead and start salting it. Do not start off with a lot of salt. And when I truly mean that when it comes to salted caramel, it is salted to taste. Some people like it really salty. Some individuals like it just mildly salty. So just start off with a few pinches first. You can always add more later if you want, okay? We like ours super salty, so going to add it in so it just melts all in. And then for the final part, my favorite, the bourbon. Just a smidge. You can smell it in there. So delicious. And then what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually just gonna let this sit and cool in the pan and then transfer it later. Looks so good, you guys. We're gonna actually, oh, forgot to close the oven door. We're gonna let this cool down. It is really, really hot. We wanna wait till after it cools down just a bit to serve it just slightly warm, okay? I'm gonna let this cool down and then we're gonna cut it open. So excited. Y'all, this peach cobbler. It's just, it literally gets me every time. The combination of flavors between the mango and peach just really make it. And then that slowly melting vanilla ice cream on top and that salted caramel bourbon ice cream just totally hits the spot.